Are you ready for some bold predictions for the 2019 real estate market? Hi, my name is Darren Jaskowiak, and I'm the broker owner of RE/MAX Advisors in the Boise area. I have three quick items to cover as they relate to our local real estate market. Number one, the state of the national and local economy. Two, local real estate. Three, my predictions. First, I'd like to spend just a minute to highlight some of the items that affect real estate from the national level, as it gives some good context for our state and city. So the U.S. economy did very well in 2018, with the U.S. growth rate being at about 3.1%. That is very strong for an economy the size of ours. The predictions for this year is that it will be at about 2.5%, still very strong. Now, the USA was named the world's most competitive economy for the first time in 10 years by the World Economic Forum. This means that we are competing for business worldwide and are very well positioned for some years to come. Now, the next item I want to touch on is the global growth rate, which is at 3.7%. Now, this looks good at first glance, but it's really not as good as it could be because there's many other economies around the globe are nowhere close to the size of ours. So a good analogy would be to take this down to a personal level. So if your household income or personal economy is, say, 10 million bucks a year, you make 3% on that, well, you have an additional 300,000 to invest. Not bad. In fact, you can do something pretty substantial with that. But if your income is, say, 10,000 a year, the 3% or extra 300 bucks, it doesn't really have that much of an impact. Now, I bring this stat up because it affects foreign investors not having as much to invest in U.S. real estate, and also your stock portfolio, depending on how it's invested, might be a bit affected. Now, we don't have a ton of foreign investors buying into our local market, but some neighboring states do, specifically Washington and California. And we tend to get a fair amount of relocation and investors from those two states. So if the demand for their real estate drops, we can see a slight ripple effect in the amount of relocating businesses or people who can invest here. Now, on a local and much more human level, the real important question is, are people working and are they getting paid? Now, the unemployment rate has steadily been falling since 2010, with the 2018 U.S. rate being at about 3.7%, which in general means that there is full employment. However, this is a bit of an unfair statement, as certain professions or income levels may have more difficulty in finding a job than others. But it's great news for people entering the workforce, coming out of college, millennials, etc. Now, on a more local level, the unemployment rate is about 2.7% for Ada County and 2.9% for Boise, and just a slight year-over-year increase from 2.5 in 2017. Now, one thing to keep track of is the percentage of employment that we have in construction. In years past, that has been a bit higher than one would like, but it seems to be holding at about 9%, where it had in the mid-teens or pre-recession. Now, given all the construction, this highlights a diversity and growth in our economy over the last 8 years. Now, the other very important factor is what people are getting paid. And I see so much news about the average wage and job growth rate in Idaho that it's a bit hard to determine what the reality is. And I think this is largely due to news outlets, really not providing proper context to their reporting. Shocking, right? So in 2017, we were ranked number 1 in job growth. Now, these stats are often reported in the spring of the following year, making them appear as if it was for the current year they are reported in. So the number to look at now is where we ranked at today. And the most recent data, which is from the end of November, is that we now ranked 19th in job growth for the country, which seems like a big drop from the number 1 spot, but in reality, we're only down about 1.82% change year over year for our job growth. Still, we're at very, very strong numbers, but it does signal a slight leveling off in job growth. Now, when looking at people what they actually make, it starts to get a lot more difficult. For one thing, we have such a diverse economy, and as I like to say, we have a chip economy, right? Computer chip, potato chip, cow chip. Now, it's hard to classify this into one wage, but when we look at median household income in Ada County, it's at about 60,000 bucks. That's from last available data in 2017, which doesn't seem like that high until you compare that to other counties. which I did. So San Diego County, as an example, has a median household income of a little over 70,000, with a median house price almost twice as much. Crazy, right? So I think it's fair to say that we have seen wages grow throughout the area. Just look at the help wanted signs and talk to any employer looking for employees. Now, they're having a problem finding them. Wage growth overall is reported to be at 3.1% nationally, which is excellent, as it's exceeding the inflation rate, which has gone up a bit from 2017 of 2.1% to about 2.3% in 2018, and projected to be about 2.3% for this year. Now, you may not be aware of this, but the Consumer Price Index does not factor in the value or appreciation of real estate into their calculation, as they consider that an asset, which it is, but they only factor in what it would cost to rent your home. So, speaking of rents, it's still a considerably larger part of a person's income to rent versus buy because of many factors I don't have time to go into now. But when I do a direct comparison between renting versus buying for a typical resale home in the area, renting is still a bit more expensive than the mortgage, taxes, and insurance, and that's with minimum down. So, considering that real estate ownership is a very good insulator against inflation and rates are still historically very low, home ownership has many long term advantages. Now, speaking of rates, we are expecting two rate hikes in 2019. Not huge increases, but nonetheless, financing will get a bit more expensive. Now, I still must add that rates are incredibly low from my experience. And when I speak about housing values, I subscribe to the notion that there is no such thing as a national real estate market. Everything is local. It's even more than that, as it's all neighborhood. With that, let me touch on some county information to provide a baseline without boring you with a laundry list of statistics. I also must say that I work hard to look at the most relevant data, so this info is from the fourth quarter of 2018. And I break down resale versus new construction as I consider those two separate markets and products. So the median Ada County resale home is now at about 292,000, and it's 207,000 in Ada County. New construction, 388,000 and about 287,000 respectively. Now, the trends over the last 3 years are also interesting to look at as we see values increase in the double-digit percentages in almost every category. And I have been a full-time realtor for 35 years now, since I was 20, if you can believe that. And I've personally handled nearly 2,000 real estate transactions. And during that time, I've seen a lot of changes in the marketplace and economy. When I look at the increase in prices, combined with a slight increase in interest rates, with a modest leveling off in job growth projected, I believe we'll see a slight correction in the marketplace overall this year. By correction, I mean a normalization in the marketplace, which we really haven't seen in 12 to 15 years. And I predict we will see a reduction in the rate of appreciation to about half of what it was last year, and an increase in the market time of about 2 to 3 times. So, if a home in your neighborhood took a week to sell last year, well, it may take 2 or 3 weeks this year. Still, that's a very good time. I remember when it took 6 months or longer when I got in the business. And shoot, I don't even want to talk about the Great Recession, as I still have PTSD from that. Now, another interesting fact. Did you know that according to the National Association of Realtors, that 73% of active realtors have never worked in a marketplace like we are entering? But I have, and the associates in my firm are also all prepared for the changes that lay ahead. Now, the market changes will be minor, but the skills to operate and represent your interests are vastly different. If you'd like to talk more about the marketplace and what may be a good direction for you, just call, text, or email me anytime. I'm here to help any way that I can. Hey, thank you very much.